Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new gaming series on
The Skooled Zone.
Assassin's Creed Syndicate. What can I say? I've been waiting for this to come out. You don't have to wait very long for Assassin's Creed games though. Not like Fallout games, right? But man, my hopes are so high for this game and so far it has not disappointed. So without further ado, let's jump right in it.
The past is your playground. Abstergo.
Hello, Initiate. Recently, Abstergo Historical Research began several new projects in London. We both know that when Abstergo makes big moves, the Templars are up to something. We think they're hot on the trail of a new piece of Eden. I've got people in London looking for it.
Hey, Bishop! Jacob and Evie Fry are twins. How awesome is that?
Speak of the devil. Fire up your cameras, Bex. I've got picture. ETA on the payload?
Sending it now.
A lot to sift through. I'm gonna get the Initiates on it ASAP.
You look weird with a weapon. Let's plant a little bug and see what we can see. Got something. Isabel Ardant has a meeting here in a few hours. Doesn't say with who.
Doesn't say with whom, Rebecca. I suppose it's down to Muggins here to find out.
Hold on. The mission was to find data to locate a piece of Eden in London.
We did.
And now, I am eager to try this new kit.
I don't like it when those two go off book like this. Well, all we can do is take a deep breath and move forward. You'll be searching for the piece of Eden through the lives of Jacob and Evie Fry, twin assassins who operated in Victorian London. Your first set of genetic memories are downloaded. Good luck.
Brother George, it is as I feared. London has fallen. Thrice I have written to you begging your aid. Thrice you've responded with silence. And yet I write again. So desperate my need, so few my options. I need you. London needs you. You would say it is too great of a task, or that it is not yet time to strike. Patience, you would counsel. But whilst you wait, the Templars consolidate their power. They have chosen a Grand Master so ruthless, so thorough, one might think Reginald Birch himself had returned. His name is Crawford Starrick, and he intends to rule the world. There is no aspect of society he does not control, no industry that escapes his grim touch. By day, it is corrupt merchants and venal politicians who hold court. Come night, a vicious street gang known as the Blighters strikes terror in the hearts of all. There is no business untainted by his poison, no person unexploited, be it by duplicity or force. Our enemy has designs on the highest office of them all. And so, as you look inward, and dare I say it, afraid, Crawford Starrick's ambition is fixed on the beyond, to kingdoms and continents as yet unconquered, though not for long, for he knows, as I have warned you time and time again, whosoever controls London controls the world.
The iron ship's from here. The Templar running things is Rupert Ferrous and our target 1. Target 2 is Sir David Brewster, who's got his hands on a bauble that could ruin us in this wretched war. Think you both can handle it?
What a question.
All right. My mistake. Ladies and gentlemen, the unstoppable Fry twins. See them nightly at Covent Garden.
George, honestly, I've studied the plans of the laboratory and have every route covered.
And I've got all I need right here. I'll extend your regards to Ferrous.
Chat later, George. We've a train to catch.
Jacob! Evie! May the Creed guide you vagrants!
Poor man, more afraid than ever. Years have not been kind.
Evie Fry, where do you get it from?
The same place as you, Jacob.
Have fun.
Don't die.
How long does he intend to go on like this? He's disrupting the other workers. Shut his trap and get the machine fixed. And send me some laudanum for my head.
Coming right up.
That male narrator, Henry Green, I think, sounds a little bit like Mohinder Suresh from Heroes, didn't he? Anyway, amazing intro and so many factoids I can give you before we get started. So if you're new to the Skooled Zone, my name is Paul. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. As my regular viewers know, I usually start a game with a bunch of facts in a row to sort of set up the environment and bring you up to speed from an educational standpoint. So let's go ahead and do that. So in the very opening cutscene with the woman at her computer, Bishop, I think, we saw a brief glimpse of the word Hephaestus. I can tell you that Hephaestus was the Greek god of fire, blacksmiths, and craftsmen. In Roman mythology, he was called Vulcan. He was the son of Zeus, and he made all the weapons and armor for the Olympians. In the Assassin's Creed world, Hephaestus is the name of the private email network for the Assassin's Order. Most of you know what initiate means, but in case you don't, it means a beginner or someone who has been brought into the fold, so to speak. Now, this installment in the franchise takes place in Victorian London. I'm just going to walk around a bit while I'm talking here. So much to talk about there as far as the setting of this game, so I'll probably do it in chunks throughout the various episodes. But I can tell you that the word Victorian means the era of history that took place during the reign of Queen Victoria, which spanned from 1837 to 1901. It was a period of peace and prosperity, but mainly for the rich and powerful industrial barons of the time. It was also an era of strict morality and a sort of social prudishness. Everything was expected to have its proper order, from family life to fashion to education. But there was also an underlying social unrest because of a lot of disease and poverty among the poor and working class, and thus the gang element festered in the underbelly of London. Henry, the narrator, said thrice a few times. It's basically just a fancy word of saying 3 times in a row. He also said whilst, which is a quaint or fancy way of saying while, and he mentioned Reginald Birch, not related to the Lord Fauntleroy Reginald Birch. In Assassin's Creed lore, he was one of the Grand Masters of the Templars, and I believe the one that turned Hatham into a Templar. If I remember correctly, he made an appearance in Assassin's Creed 3. Crawford Starrick is also not a real historical figure. He's just the new Grand Master of the Templars during the Victorian era. Henry uses the word venal when referring to venal politicians. Venal means someone who is open to bribery or easily corruptible. Good SAT word there, actually. One of the rival gangs calls themselves the blighters. The word blight means deterioration or decay, but the word blighter itself had its own meaning during the era. It meant like a scoundrel or a ruffian, and he used the word duplicity, another good vocabulary word, that means deceitful or two-faced. And we start off here in something called an ironworks. Probably pretty obvious, but an ironworks is where iron is smelted and molded into various products. I'll talk about things like blast furnaces and foundries in upcoming episodes. It's interesting though that it's called ferrous ironworks because ferrous, spelled with an OU, actually means iron or containing iron. Now, Croydon, where it's located, is a section of South London. Borough, I guess you could say. It was famous for having one of the first railways in London, and also for being home to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the writer behind Sherlock Holmes. I actually mentioned him too in one of the Dishonored episodes, but in their conversation a moment ago, they mentioned David Brewster. He was actually a real historical figure. He was a scientist during the period who specialized in optics. He was also the inventor of the kaleidoscope. I bet that bauble that George was talking about is some kind of prism thingy, which would be right up Brewster's alley. And in case you don't know, bauble is a slang term for a trinket or like a little glass orb. And George mentioned Covent Garden. I believe that's a district of London near the West End, although he was probably referring to the Royal Opera House, which is also referred to as Covent Garden. And George called Jacob and Evie vagrants. A vagrant is another word for a vagabond or a tramp, or in this context, it's someone who wanders about without any guidance. During Ferris's little monologue there, he mentioned laudanum for his headache after watching the child being injured. I actually talked about laudanum as well as child labor during the Industrial Revolution in my Dishonored series. You can actually go to the Skooled Zone website, skooled.zone, and under the Knowledge tab, just click on Questions Answered. Then you can scroll down to laudanum and the Industrial Revolution to hear more info about that. Very cool resource there. Okay, guys, well, that's about where we'll end it for today's episode. Just a quick episode here to set the scene before we go and mix it up in tomorrow's episode. So thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed my first next-gen game. I couldn't be happier. The Skooled Zone is all grown up. If you haven't checked out what I did with Dishonored or Sniper Elite 3, then definitely click on the links on the left and the middle. And if you want to learn more about the Skooled Zone channel itself, then check out the playlist on the right. Definitely subscribe if you want more cool video game factoids delivered to you each week, and be sure to throw a like on this video if you learned something new today. Alright, well tune in tomorrow when we dive right into the action. Stay smart.